Brigette Sobus is a 30-year industry veteran, CEO and founder of Power and Joy Coaching Academy. Today, we're going to hear about how she went from being a six-figure certified master colorist to helping thousands of hairdressers and owners as a consultant and coach, and now is helping by way of timeline therapy, hypnosis, and NLP. What is all that stuff, and how did she do it? Welcome back to the Hairdresser Strong Show. I am your host, Robert Hughes, and today I'm with Brigette Sobus. How are you doing today, Brigette?
I'm doing awesome, Robert. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. So why don't we? I'm curious to know exactly what timeline therapy, NLP, and hypnosis, like what that's like. Well, I understand. I know what hypnosis is, but the others I'm not sure. But before we get there, why don't we hear about your story? Give us a little context to how you got to where you are, starting with like how you got into hair.
Yeah. So, how I got into hair, honestly, was I did go to college for a year and a half, and I became a college dropout because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And then one day I said, I think I want to go to cosmetology school. And so I went, and it was actually the best decision that I made. Like, I fell in love with it, and I specifically fell in love with doing hair color. So I found, I went through, I think I was an assistant at least 3 different times for different companies, and then became a master certified colorist. I worked in different types of businesses, anywhere from like small run businesses to corporate to everything in between. And then the last salon I found myself working at was a pretty dysfunctional hot mess. And I thought to myself, if this guy can own a business, there's no reason why I can't. I'm sure there's many of you out there that feel the same way at times when you're working for someone, if you don't own a business.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. So the opportunity presented itself, and I bought the business, and my dreams of becoming a millionaire overnight pretty much vanished overnight. I quickly realized I had no idea what I was doing. I lost my 6-figure paycheck. If you knew me back in 2006 and I was trying to run my first team meeting, I was crying because I was so overly emotional. And someone introduced me to a coaching and consulting company, and I hired them pretty much straight away. And I started implementing the systems. I learned how to run a team meeting without crying, which was pretty cool.
Well, can we go back for a second? What was the dysfunction in the salon? Like, what can you be a little specific? Give us a little specifics on, because I'm sure people can that are listening or watching can relate to something.
Which dysfunction, before or after I bought the salon?
Well, maybe a little something before and something after.
So a little bit before was that just the finances weren't being managed properly. Sometimes I knew that bills weren't getting paid. We didn't really have any team meetings or leadership going on. It was just really negative in there.
Gotcha.
And then when I took it over, I was really run a lot by my emotions, and I had no idea what a cash flow projection is. I had no idea what a budget was. There were 0 systems in this business. There was no handbook, no job descriptions, no compensation. I mean, the compensation structure was like 50% of what you made.
Right.
I think even I was getting paid 60% of what I was making through the past owner, which I would not recommend giving anything more than 45% commission, but that's a whole other story as a business consultant. But yeah, so honestly, now I have a team, and I was like, was their friend, and now I'm their boss.
Okay.
And I had no idea what I was doing. Like I literally was like working my butt off behind the chair, trying to keep the doors open. And all my sales were just going back into it, keeping the doors open. And so that was kind of the dysfunction.
Okay.
So I became the dysfunctional mess prior to hiring a consultant.
Okay, got it. All right, cool. Now, so you get a consultant, and okay, go from there.
So I get a consultant, and now I'm quickly implementing what he's teaching me. And like he taught me this consultation system, and I was like, I'm gonna read a script to my clients. Like, really? Like, they've known me for years. And I literally had like a clipboard out, and I'm like, hi, I'm learning this new consultation, and I'm gonna be reading some questions to you. And I was following the system, and before I know it, I took my average service ticket. So this is back in like 2006, 2007. Took my average service ticket from $90, which is pretty good for back then, to $140
Nice.
just by following the script and saying it really awkward.
Wow.
So I started increasing my own business, which allowed me to step back from behind the chair. And then I started teaching it to my own team. And then over like the course of probably like a year and a half, I started layering in systems. I learned how to do a cash flow projection. I learned how to budget. I implemented an employee handbook to an already existing, employees, job description. So I started to layer in each month different systems in the business, which then in turn had me growing the business by 30-40%, and then became a Salon Today top 200 winner for 13 years in a row.
Nice. Cool. Awesome. So you build your business, you get it going, and that then what? I mean, how do you go from there to becoming a consultant?
So the consulting company that I hired originally, I met the owner. I met with the owner, and I was like, I want to do this work. I want to become a consultant. And she's like, oh, take my Train the Trainer program. So that was my first step. I became a certified trainer, and then started going to hair shows. And then just like the evolution just started happening. Then I started doing consulting work. And then in 2010, we could probably talk about my story for days, so I'm going to give highlights around it, because it wasn't all sunshine and roses. I've had some pretty traumatic things happen during this course of being a business owner.
Is there something that you could share that you be willing to share about something traumatic? People tend to like to hear like what your struggles were and how it came over them, because everyone has struggles themselves. It's helpful to hear how people
Yeah.
were able to get through them and have success afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. So in 2010, I found myself going through a really nasty divorce.
Okay.
And it took over 2 years to get through that divorce. And from that divorce, I found that I was this is personal debt. Personal debt because of things I did not realize that was happening behind my back. So people that are getting married or in relationships, check in on what your partner's doing behind your back, because it's good to have those cards on the table. But I found myself in $1.3 million of debt.
Wow.
After the divorce was over.
Wow.
And now I'm faced with all this debt. And actually, to be honest with you, to get out of the divorce, I actually took on all the debt. And then I had attorneys recommending to me, and my own family were like, you have to file bankruptcy to get out from under this. And I was like, if I file bankruptcy, I'm at risk for losing my own business. And I bit the bullet. I decided to go through with it. And then I decided to buy my own business back. I actually had some mentors say, just let it go, Brigette. You're up for different things. You know what I mean? Like, because I was doing a lot of coaching and consulting work at that point, and I got super ego driven. In 2018 and going into 19. And I was like, no one's taking my own business from me unless I'm parting it with my own way. So I decided to negotiate with the trustee and buy my own business back. And of course, they're scrutinizing everything. Like, salons it's really interesting how salons can be evaluated. I mean, really, it's like if all your employees leave, you could be just left with like assets, like the chairs and the shampoo bowls and the inventory on the street. So I knew that my business was actually valuable because I was the owner, and these people, I was leading these people. There were times when I was producing like $900 to $1 million in revenue, and they were scrutinizing that. And so I had to negotiate. I bought it back, and for a hefty amount of money that I was having to pay back in 1 year. And in 2019, I call it my dark night of the soul year, because I was in complete survival mode. I was working my butt off in consulting. I was trying to keep up with the salon. It was really, really hard for me to keep up with the high payments.
Can I ask you a question? Just
Yeah.
who like, you filed bankruptcy, and I think I'm confused about the process. So
yeah.
So where did who are the trustees? Where did they come involved? You had to buy it back from who?
Yeah.
Did you buy it back from?
Yeah, it's a really interesting process. So basically, honestly, if anyone was like, should I buy my own business back from bankruptcy? I'd be like, no, learn from my mistake. Go start a new one. Because you file, and then you get relief from everything. If you own an asset, so I owned an asset, which was the salon.
Mm-hmm.
Then what they do is they either do one or two things. They're either going to sell it. The trustee will take your asset and they will sell it. So they will actually then, any money that they get from that, they're now going to disperse it to creditors that you possibly owned money to.
Okay.
Or you can buy the asset back, create a payment plan, and with that money that they take, they disperse it to.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So okay, cool. Thank you. I never heard of this like specific thing before. I've heard of bankruptcy, but yeah, I think that's fascinating. So why would you say just start another one? Just because you paid too much for it?
Oh, I paid way too much for it.
Yeah.
I paid way too much. I could have taken that money and just started something from scratch and rebuilt a whole team.
Well, and you could have just gotten your team to follow you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like in hindsight, the amount of money that I paid for it, I could have just started a brand new business.
Gotcha. Okay.
But instead, it was like operating on top of all this. Like, it's very expensive to run a hair salon. Like, I think it's like every like dollar that comes in, like salon owners are lucky if they keep 1 to 5 cents on that dollar. It's extremely expensive to run a salon and spa. So for the amount of money that I paid for it, I could have just started a brand new one. But anyway, lessons learned.
This was good.
Yeah, it was such a great learning experience for me. And, and even during that time, I have kicked breast cancer's ass twice.
What?
Yes. So, yes, thank you. And, so it was like, in like 1 year, I was like trying to file bankruptcy, we're all free and clear of this, but got breast cancer and trying to buy my own business back. It was a lot.
Yeah. Wow.
And then that's a whole nother story, but like, I think I did get breast cancer again in 2022, but I'm really healthy. I love my life and everything is good. But through all that, I really learned a lot of lessons. And sometimes you think, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, we're like, how come this is happening to me? Like, what is going on? And there's lessons everywhere. So I take my lessons and my learning and I help all the people that I coach and consult. So that's my gift.
I think that working with somebody, like if you're asking for advice from somebody, I'd much rather ask for advice to somebody who's had to go through struggles and get through them. And I don't want someone who hasn't been through life life's just been rosy and peachy and everything's positive and manifest positivity. And it's like, no, like when things happen, how do we actually get through them? And it's a little bit more than thinking positive thoughts, So I
You are so right about that. I was actually thinking about that this morning, because affirmations are great and all. And it's the deep dive of the inner work that actually, you could say affirmations. I used to say affirmations all day long before I started doing NLP, timeline therapy, and hypnosis work. And I was like, I keep saying I'm amazing. I keep saying all these things. Why does this other part of my brain keep running my show of negative thoughts and negative emotions? So.
Yeah. And what did you come up with? Why were you thinking?
So our brains, from the ages of our conscious and our unconscious mind, especially our unconscious mind, get programmed with values, belief systems from the ages of 0 to 7, whether people realize it or not. And most of the time, people are unaware of the negative thought patterns that are really running their show.
And are we talking about these things that you're working in now? I mean, is this related to timeline therapy and NLP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? So I feel like we got a nice little high level with a little depth to your story, and now tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, because it sounds like that's where we're going in our conversation. So what is timeline therapy and NLP?
So timeline therapy, we'll start with NLP. So NLP is Neuro Linguistic Programming, and it really it's a study of modeling excellence. It's practicing how to be really mindful of your words and your thoughts, whether it's words coming out of your mouth or even your self-talk. It can support changing behaviors at the unconscious mind. So the conscious mind, it takes at least 21 days to form a new habit. With this work, you can change it in 5 to 10 minutes and help change your behavior patterns. Timeline therapy is, it's like a mixture. It's like a hybrid of hypnosis work and NLP, and it is used to support letting go of negative emotions and limiting beliefs that are at the root cause of the problem. The best way I love to describe how timeline therapy works is, do you know the movie Scrooge? Christmas Carol?
Yeah.
Okay. So he goes back in time, and he watches his past self. And he's watching his past self, and then he's getting all these learnings and ahas and all this stuff. And then he brings him back to his future, or his present, and then he changes the trajectory of his future. He's a more happy, loving, generous man that is now has a joyful life. Which before he was just grumpy and greedy and super unhappy.
Can you give us an example of how it would work, and give us a little bit more I don't know.
How do I give an example without?
Yeah, what is how about this? Think of the people that you work with on this, and think of something that they're trying to work on, or a session that you've had recently, and tell us a little bit about what that was without revealing who your client was.
Yes. So I guess I'll even speak to a stylist that I coached in the past. So I coached a stylist. She's a solopreneur. She actually I do have permission to tell her story. Her name's Mary.
Okay.
She's a testimonial for me. So she took coaching programs from me prior to this type of work, and she would have growth. And then she took my certification program And then also that involves the timeline therapy. What she did was she got to the root limiting beliefs of making more money. So she worked in my program uncovering what those limiting beliefs are that were deep rooted that were preventing her from making more money.
Well, wait, how did this person find you?
Probably at hair shows long
Okay,
time ago.
so the person meets you at a hair show. Did she come up to you and say, "Hey, I have a trouble with making more money and I want to work on that," or like how did that get started?
Well, back then I was working for another consulting company, and yeah, I think it was just we would do trainings on basically how to become a six-figure earner.
Okay.
So yeah, so her thing was money. And then I kept in contact with her over the years. And then after I launched the Power and Joy Coaching Academy, and I kept in contact with her and then shared with her what I was up to. And she's like, yeah, I want to take your program. So she took my certification program, and I'm not even kidding, by like letting go of like negative emotions like fear or guilt of raising prices, fear of your clients leaving you, with all the things. So after she took my program, the next month she worked 10 days less behind the chair and had a 50% increase in her business.
Nice.
She went from $6,000 to $9,000 on average, and now she's clearing over $10,000. And she also is an educator for a hair smoothing company. So
Okay.
that's just like the result of doing that inner self work.
I'm curious to know like what this work is. Give a little peek behind the curtain, but maybe we save that for another conversation. Throughout your time as a consultant and a coach, what has been the most common challenges that you've worked with people on?
Their mindset.
Their mindset. It's like,
Yes. The fear, like if like a salon owner, you're like, I make a recommendation to raise prices $5. It's like you act like you're asking for their kidney.
okay,
It's a lot of fear.
here, yeah,
Fear, worry, anxiety, guilt. People get in their clients' pocketbooks because they get hooked on their clients' stories. And their client stories are just their client stories. It's like you start undercharging your client, and then before you know it, they're telling you about their trip to Italy in the next 2 weeks, or the Gucci bag they just bought. So a lot of salon and spa professionals, they get hooked on their client stories, and then they feel bad.
okay. So it's like a guilt on like because it's another person and they're a human, they have a life, we have a relationship, and they like kind of make it too personal and they blur the lines between business and personal. And that's the most common thing that you deal with.
I think that happens all the time.
I mean, I hear that all the time.
I
I'm
tell
not surprised, actually.
And I can't even believe, like, for going to so many hair shows and solopreneurs or stylists or whatever, and like, but my clients are my friends, and I
Yeah.
want my client to be my friend. I'm like, your clients are not your friends.
I mean, they're your friends
You
until
can
they're
be
not.
friendly with them, but they're not your friends. And
Totally.
I can go down so many different conversations, even employees, for my salon owners that are listening to this. Like I was just in a conversation with a bunch of coaches talking about like someone saying like, well, when you're going to have this tough conversation with someone, say, I love you and da 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 da. I'm talking from my own experience. I used to tell my team I loved them all the time. And I had some people walk out on me. I had people that said they had my back no matter what. Like, you know what I mean? There's a fine line between professionalism when you're with your employee or professionalism when you're with your client.
So,
You gotta wear the professional hat.
so how do you feel about people saying, "Oh, we're a family"?
I believe that yes, you can say a family, and you have to have policies, procedures, handbooks, and all the things
Doesn't
involved.
sound like a family to me, though.
Well, you can care
I mean,
about people. I get what you're saying. Yes.
I mean, you
I
can't fire your
completely get
family
what you're
member,
saying because
you know?
like I said, I would, I had parties for my team. I had this. I like policies and procedures are so important in businesses. Like they saved me. Like I had this one employee of mine. So like I could tell stories all day long, but like I had an employee of mine. Unfortunately, she was like, there's two people that were saying really inappropriate jokes to her. Okay. Like that were crossing the line, and all three of these women were considered like minority type, so it's kind of strange. Like they're making jokes when they're all like in this minority position, like that, if you want to classify it like that, right? Without going into the detail. So this one woman who said, I cared about her. I told her, I told her I loved her, to be honest with you. And she ended up quitting my business, reporting my business to the Department of Regulation. She filed for unemployment and all the things, even though she told me she cared about me too. But I had to protect the business. But because I had job descriptions in place, employee handbooks in place, I was in action. Like I had a team meeting. I wrote people up. I had a contract with this person. The suit, everything went into my favor
Nice.
because I had all that stuff in place,
Right.
and that was to a person who we told each other we loved each other.
So basically, if you think that if you hadn't had all that organization stuff, then all that documentation of like roles and had meetings and other documentation, then you think that it would have been easy to make a case against you that you weren't handling things a certain way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Absolutely.
This is good. This is really good. I like your story, and I totally am on the same page with you on your what you're like the spirit of what you're saying, and I'd like to hear more about this NLP work and this timeline therapy. I'd like to like I don't know, like maybe have like walk through some steps or something like that to kind of peel back the curtain. But let's save that for the next time we talk. I think this is a great place to wrap it up. Would you like to sign off with any sort of like advice or words of wisdom to rising stylists, aspiring salon owners, or existing salon owners?
Yes. Let me see what the most thing. Okay, systems, policies, and procedures. If you work for yourself or if you work for somebody, they are vital, absolutely vital. And mindset is everything. Like that stylist that I shared with you about that had the 50% growth and now is clearing 10K a month. She did buy the website Mindset is Everything or something. She's developing her own stylist programs now, but mindset it's key. Working on your inner self and doing any trauma releases that you have to do that might be getting in your way. Work on your mindset.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate your time, and I really do appreciate you sharing the details of your story. And I do think that there are going to be people listening or watching that can relate to it. And so thank you. And I look forward to talking to you again next time.
Yeah, same here.
All right. Bye-bye.